Love and do what you will. This movement from the chaos of fear and sin into the order and freedom of love is beautifully expressed in a verse from the second letter of St. John. This is love, that we follow his commandments. This is the commandment, that we follow love. 2 John chapter 6. In other words, love touches us in the discord in which we find ourselves and tenderly draws us into the realm of God's own order, the order of the commandments. But these commandments and this order are nothing but love itself. For to follow the commandments is ultimately nothing but to follow love, to be liberated into the very order of the life of the Trinity, which is complete openness in mutual acceptance and self-giving, perpetually sealed in the joy of intimacy. The commandments of God, in other words, are nothing but the signs of his attunement to me and my own longing for happiness. They are signposts directing, harmonizing, and ordering my desires and actions back to him, toward my authentic good and well-being. Obedience to the commandments of God and the Church, therefore, is not meant to be a blind and mechanical matter, but rather a path of ever deeper discovery of the true values that speak to me in all reality, awakening my wholehearted response. By letting my heart resonate with these values of which the commandments speak, I begin to find that the need for a commandment or rule disappears, and I spontaneously let myself be enraptured directly by the value itself. Here the very goal of commandments is fulfilled in a realm beyond the commandments themselves, in the simple, direct, and unmediated contact of my whole being with the being of all things, and with the being of God himself, who attunes to me in the depths of his divine harmony, and in doing so, harmonizes my whole being within the dance of his own harmonious love. It is at this point, in a living contact with the value that awakens my spontaneous response, that the beautiful words of St. Augustine come in. Love and do what you will. Yes, these words have been falsely interpreted and abused a number of times by those who redefine love as something that it is not. In effect, they are saying, do what you will and call it love. But whatever abuses there may have been, these words do still beautifully touch upon the heart of authentic love and the freedom that it creates. Relationship with God is not, as our contemporary culture imagines, an external yoke that draws us ever more deeply into a kind of divine slavery where we cannot follow any of the desires or movements of our own hearts, but rather must always look to a standard outside of ourselves which we must obey. Rather, in this intimate space, the external values that speak a word of invitation to us coincide with the deepest and most interior desires of our hearts, for they were both created by God himself as one single fabric of intimacy and love. The external rules that beforehand were necessary to guide and direct our desires, the more deeply we enter into a living contact with the mystery to which they direct our attention and actions, are no longer necessary. Rather, we spontaneously and freely do what is good, beautiful, and true, in confident and childlike playfulness. The things which rules forbade simply become undesirable or even disgusting to us, and the things that rules required become the deepest desires of our hearts. This is because the desires of our hearts, touched and grasped by the reality that fulfills them, are harmonized and energized by that eternal movement of love in which they participate and find their full consummation. How does relationship with God bring this freedom? Through the gift of the Holy Spirit, who is the very love of God poured into our hearts, the dichotomy between internal desires and external commandments is bridged over, and love is no longer merely an obligation placed on us from the outside, but the deepest living truth of our own hearts. Is not love and intimacy, after all, the deepest desires of every human heart from the very first moment of our conception? Yes, we were created for love, and whatever authentically manifests love authentically manifests God. It is only our lack of love that makes us unfree. But once love takes possession of us, and it does this insofar as we allow ourselves to be loved first, and from this place look in turn upon the beauty of the beloved, then we spontaneously become free to live and love in response. Here the internal and the external are deeply and inseparably united. This is because my deepest internal desires are actually the desire to make contact with the external, with the absolute love of another who is totally devoted to me and to whom I can totally devote myself. It is my desire to return wholeheartedly into the cradling arms of love and to rest in the tenderness of his embrace. It is the desire to act, speak, play, and dance within the perfect shelter of his presence and care. It is the desire to surrender my whole being so totally to him that I may live in him and he in me, and to open my heart from this place in order to welcome, shelter, and love all of those whom he has created, entering into deep and intimate relationships with them within the space of his own love. When I make contact again with this love that lies at the origin of my existence and which unceasingly shelters and sustains me, then I make contact with the true contours of my life and my authentic desires. And this love spontaneously teaches me, not like a disciplinarian, but like a lover, not like a textbook, but like an artist, unveiling before me a glimpse of the beauty for which my heart longs, and thus awakening and spontaneously harmonizing my authentic desires toward what will truly fulfill them. And as long as this connection between my heart and the heart of the other endures, as long as this union between my contemplative gaze and the truth of reality abides, as long as my love surges back in response to the love that I first receive, then the words of St. Augustine prove true. Love, and then do what you will. Love, beloved child, and you are free to dance and play to your heart's content. Remain always in the shelter of his embrace, in the security of his love, allowing him to look tenderly upon you and to awaken your own gaze, and then do what you will. For then there will be but one desire in your heart, a desire that contains within itself the richness of every desire, not suppressing or stripping them away, but rather harmonizing them in unity like a symphony of many instruments gathered together in richness of sound. Let yourself be loved, child, and you will love. Then love and do what you will. And do what you will, since what you will shall be nothing but love, living and breathing the beautiful life, the breath of joy, the heartbeat of intimacy that has first been breathed into you by the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.